Okay, this is my first episode of Gush, Erupt, Deconstruct. I am Stevie, and I'm here with my guest.
Oh, wait, I didn't even think about how to say my name.
Okay, well, I know her as Jojo.
Yeah, Jojo.
Yeah.
But I feel like if you're going by, like, government name, Jordan.
Ugh, I'm not even going by my government name.
I
No!
feel like Jordan is very serious, and unless you're, like, my mom or my grandma, don't call me that, because I'm in trouble.
Yeah, no, I mean, we were working together, and I still called you Jojo. Yeah. So I think that's fine.
And you know what? So did my students when they found my social media, so...
Isn't that scary? That's scary when they do that.
It's like nightmare fuel.
Yes, and then I asked one of my students, I'm like, oh, is it private or is it public? And she's like, it's public. And I'm like, ugh, that's awful. But it is what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so today I have invited you to discuss what life is like when we're in our 20s, because I know that it is like, it's a transformation. It's a morphing period. And I feel like people are not necessarily aware of that. You know, a lot of people, they put a lot of pressure on themselves, but I live by that, like, life is an experiment. It is a laboratory. Yeah. And I use that to troll. Okay, I use that to entertain myself, and not everybody gets it. But I really wanted Jojo to be a guest on this podcast because I felt like when we met, it was like we were in similar head frames, and now we are better a year later. It's been about a year, right? No, a year and a half?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, yeah, I guess so. Probably like right around a year, I would say.
Okay. And I feel stronger. Do you feel stronger?
Yes.
Yes.
Infinitely.
Yes, I feel happier.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So let's start with how we met and our first impressions of each other.
Ooh, that's fun. Okay, should I start?
Go for it.
Okay. We met in preschool week, no?
Yes.
Yeah. So we were teaching, both of us, first year at the same school. I was coming in with a background in middle school teaching. You had come from middle school as well, or were you high school?
No, I was high school, and I was 4 years at the same high school.
Yeah, and I had been 2 years at a middle school previously. So we were both new to the school. And I think my first impression with all of it was like shell shock, because it was so different than what I had experienced previously. I taught in Miami, like in Miami-Dade County, and I was in a public school in Wynwood, and it was chaos 24/7. And at least when we started our school year together, I was under the impression that it was extremely organized, extremely like a lot of processes for things. So I was like, oh, okay, everybody like really has their stuff together. And so I think I translated that then to like everybody that I met when we started. So I think that was like my general impression. But then I instantly feel like we bonded because we were two of the younger people on our direct team. And, you know, and having some of those initial conversations about education and things that we thought about that, I was like, oh, I feel like I connect with this guy. Like, I feel like we were similar on a lot of those things. So I was excited to have somebody that I resonated with, which feels especially important as a teacher in Florida.
For sure.
So I was excited about that.
Yes, so we met during preschool week, which I was late every single day to preschool week because I'm late all the time.
I know, setting the tone for the rest of the year.
Yes, I was teaching them. I was like Pavlov's dog. I was like, I'm going to be late. I'm going to be late. Yeah. Future employers, don't look at this. But yeah. And I remember that you were one of the only younger people too. And I was like, okay, we have young people here. That's shocking to me. Because from my other school, it was like there was also only one other young person on the staff. And then the rest of the department was like 40 plus, which wow. I really loved that team because I felt like everybody was like committed and strong and they were really doing their jobs well. So that was something that I felt like I didn't have at whatever. I did or did not work there.
Bleep it out.
Yeah, I do or do not work there. I'm not sure. It's fine. But yes, I was very happy to have you on the team. And I didn't realize that a year down the road, I would like be missing you even more because the team just got, more and more special as time went on. But yes. So how did you really feel when you first got there? And then how did it change throughout the year?
Oh, I feel like that's a very dramatic turn. So when I started, for context, again, had formally been in education for a little over 2 years at that point. And I had also just graduated with a master's in education and social change, which, fun fact, our school district didn't even acknowledge as an education degree. So love that. Love that, especially for my paycheck. But anyways, I think I came in and I had a lot of idealism and a lot of hope about what the school year was going to look like. I felt like I had crossed over that initial hurdle when you start teaching of like, oh my God, I'm drowning. Like I cannot catch my breath. Everything is terrible. And felt like I had a pretty good grasp on that. And so I was really excited about the year and being in a new grade level. And also like teaching in the community that I grew up in. Like I had done 2 years in Miami while I was in school, but I grew up in Fort Myers. And so I was so excited about having that connection piece with my students as well. And then, as you know, I would say like about halfway through the year, I think it was a lot of things that compounded. And by January, I was like, I'm done. Like I'm ready to walk away from education. I am done teaching. I was extremely disillusioned with it. And I think that of course took a toll on my mental health as well. But it was a very sharp 180 for me to come in and be like, teaching is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I'm so excited. I'm like so happy that this is my career, to all of a sudden being like, yeah, I plunged myself into student debt for this degree and I'm actually just like never going to use it again. And that's fine.
That may not be worth it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a really sharp turn. And I think that's where I ended the school year. So that was disappointing and definitely not how I saw it playing out.
Right. And a tenet of this podcast is I feel like everybody has a story to tell. And especially if I was there and I witnessed it, then I want people to learn from these stories. And we did see that change like throughout the school year because I saw how excited you were. And then you were just like, no way. Mm-hmm. It was like, this cannot continue. That's the energy I got from you. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because and still, like, even being out of education, like, I still love education. And I loved teaching. Like, I would say if everything was isolated to me being in the classroom, I loved that. And I still see the value and the importance of it. But for me, like, everything else just got to be too much to where I knew for my own health, you know, like, physical, mental, all of that, it was time to walk away.
Right. I actually started like in the reverse. I mean, I had a really tough summer because I had picked up, you know, like a second job. And honestly, me picking up a second job is so dusty. It always makes me feel bad. It always makes me feel bad because I'm like, do I have to work 2 jobs? I mean, I can do it, but it doesn't last that long. It lasts like, I would say like 6 months to a year. Yeah. And then I always quit the second job because I'm just like, this is too much. Yeah. So that on top of like personal problems, okay, I dated an extremely dusty individual, okay, who will go unnamed. But also it felt so transitional to me to be moving to a new school. And I felt, you know, shaky still. I felt like, I don't know if I can do this exactly. Because 4 years, I had spent 4 years like doing just the LY kids, the kids who only spoke Spanish. And I'd heard like these horror stories of like American children in schools, and I was like, oh my God, they're gonna eat me, which it's actually impossible to eat me. Okay, I'm inedible. I'm inedible. I will toxify your system if you try to eat me, you know, and then you'll die die from the inside out. Yes, and then I'll, you know, spring from your body. You know, I'm a survivor. But I had like that fear, which is great because, you know what, I learned that, you know, I can teach anyone. It doesn't matter like where they come from or if they had a rough upbringing, an easy upbringing, you know, children are children at the end of the day. Yeah. But there was a lot of nerves going into it. And not to say that I left like that year like on a rise, like, oh my God, this is amazing. But I had very tempered expectations. So did you feel like because you had those high expectations that you kind of came crashing down? Like what comes up must come down?
Yeah, I think that could be part of it, honestly. And you know, I had such a challenging first 2 years teaching in Miami. It's interesting because those first 2 years I look back on and I like really cherish them. I had kind of like you were saying, like a great faculty that I worked with. My coworkers were amazing and supportive. I feel like we were a little bit trauma bonded, to be honest. And my students were incredible. I taught middle school and I loved them. Like they were so special and just so like resilient too in the things that they had to face and endure every day, and then to come in and still care about their education and forming relationships. It was just, yeah, I was obsessed with them. I still think so fondly of that time. But all of that being said, Miami-Dade was an extremely challenging district to teach in, and there was a lot of oversight from the school district and some administrative issues. And so when I came into this new job, I expressed all of that, because one thing about me, I'm going to express my thoughts on things and my concerns.
Same.
And so when I was interviewing to, you know, come back to, those were things that I talked about, and I was led in a very specific direction as to like what to expect, what to think was going to happen, things like that. And maybe naively, I bought into that, and I was like, yes, this is going to be amazing. It's going to be everything that I loved, but better. Now knowing what I know about the education system, I think if I were to go back and do it again, I probably would temper those expectations a little bit. And so I think that a big part of that disappointment was, yeah, like that gap between expectations and reality, and it's the like disappointment gap, you know? But because of maybe like the other factors, like to your point, having to work a second job, having to still being a new teacher, like working so many hours outside of your contract hours, things like that, I think had worn down on me. And so then that paired with the disappointment was just like too much for me to handle, I think. And I couldn't find my path back to like a steady, realistic expectation ground.
Right. And I think we both grew up. Did you grow up wanting to be a teacher? Because I pretty much did.
I would love to say yes. I grew up obsessed with reading and obsessed with like being bossy, but I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life.
Okay.
So
I mean, I didn't imagine it like in elementary school or anything, but I did appreciate like all my teachers growing up. Yeah. And then in high school, like I was grading one of my teacher's papers, and she's like, do you want to be a teacher? And I was like, nah, I want to make money. But in reality, I did.
Yeah.
I totally did.
Totally.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I ended up here. And I felt like the last year that I worked, I was like grieving. It was like a grieving process. Like I was angry. I was sad. Because it wasn't like what I thought it was going to be. And I still have like a lot of fondness for the years like before COVID. Like you started teaching after, right?
I started teaching in 2020.
Okay.
So like mid-COVID.
Yes. I mean, I had a lot of good times those first 3 years. And then I feel like the after COVID, it's been like a downward slope.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Well, I feel like we all are having like a trauma response, you know, and like it's easy to think about that when it comes to your students. I should say easy. It's easy enough to see the effects of that on your students, but I think it's also easy to forget the effect that has on us and like what we're all still trying to come back from and the challenges that faces as well.
Right. And I feel like a lot of people like in society, they really are suffering. I mean, before COVID, I didn't know anyone who had like committed suicide. Did you?
I don't think so. I mean, like friends of friends, but nobody directly.
Yeah, I mean, now I know like 3 people who have committed suicide, and I'm like, oh my God, it's crazy.
It's sad.
I know, it makes you think about stuff, and you're like, oh, you know, I really want to do the best I can and accomplish things that maybe I didn't think were possible. You know, I want to put my best foot forward and actually try. So that kind of brings me to the next topic, which is, what do you do when that dream is over? Because I feel like I'm like still living in that dream of like I want to teach, but in reality I'm kind of like, oh, but if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, and I'm totally okay with it because I've already grieved the loss of it.
Yeah, I think like first and foremost, like you said, grieving the loss I think is important because regardless of how anybody entered into it, like you came into it knowing you wanted to be a teacher. I sort of like stumbled my way into it. It was like my 6th career choice. But
what are 1 through 5?
Oh my God, I had like 7 majors in college and ended up doing like nothing so I started as a nursing major and then I barely passed biology. So I was like, okay, well,
same.
I'm not the one to be making your medical decisions, and that's fine. It's for everybody's well-being, to be honest. And I switched from that to psychology, which I do think I still would have enjoyed, but it's hilarious because I was like, I don't want to have to get a master's degree to like do my job. Fast forward to education.
You totally got one.
So yeah, so I switched. I actually majored in special education for a short time. And this is like, I should have trusted my younger self. I had to do some observations in the school system and I was like, oh my God, this is busted. Like, I'm not doing this. Mm-hmm. I guess I like gaslit myself back into it at some point.
Oh my God, that's kind of hilarious.
Yeah, I know. It's like actually sad.
You're like, I'm just going to convince myself that this is worth
I'm
it.
like, never mind. So I did that. And then I was a marketing major for a minute. I did general business, and I was like, oh my God, business is so boring. I work in sales. And then I did something else. It was extremely brief. And then I landed on communication studies, which I would not change. I loved that degree. It was so fascinating, and it was all about like power structures and social constructs and the way that like our language shapes our reality, and I loved it. You cannot find any job with that. Like, be so for real.
Like in communications?
It's interesting. It's not communications like with an S to where you would think like PR or like journalism, things like that. It's literally you're just studying like human communication.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I don't know that I fully grasped that difference, to be honest. I wouldn't, again, go back and undo it, but I got out of college and I was like, oh my God, I can't find a job.
I mean, I feel like you could become like a grifter, kind of like I'm a spiritual communicator.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Literally, it's like
That's
so
possible.
abstract and like woo-woo kind of, but okay. I loved it. But really, like, if I was going to stay in that vein, it would have probably been doing research and things like that, and I just didn't go that route. And then I thought I was going to do social work. Didn't, because I was like, that system is broken, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to put myself through that. And then COVID hit, and I had, like, an identity crisis. And I was like, well, I do love education. And I do. Like, I've always valued it. I loved school. I love, like, the things that it gives people access to and the way that it shapes your thinking. And then I found a degree at actually, it's education and social change. So it combined my undergrad with education. And I was like, all right, done deal. And I jumped in head first.
Well, it sounds like you had like multi-interest, so you were in a great position if it didn't work out.
Yes. And I do think that, to your earlier question, like, how do you face that dream kind of dying? Like, I think for me, I've always had commitment issues, first of all. So Same. Like, I knew going into any career, like, this is likely not something that I'm going to do, at least this specific job, for the rest of my life. Like, at some point, there was going to be something inside of me that needed to move on. So I think that made it easier for me when I got to that point of like, oh, this isn't working. I'm like, okay, well, time's up. Time to move on to the next thing. So I think I did have a benefit in that regard, but it took a long time to acknowledge the fact and kind of like let myself off the mat with, this is the direction I thought I was going, and this is what I've invested time and effort into, and it's actually okay if it didn't work out because I'm still young and I still have time to figure things out, and it's something that I can come back to Doesn't have to, like, every decision is not a forever decision, you know?
Right.
Like, it has impact on you long term, but it's not like you close a door, you can never open it again. And I think I had to come to that realization to give myself permission to walk away.
Yeah, I think part of like healthiness is like flexibility, either mental, and like you can think about it physically too. Like rigidity is like, it's like a disease.
Yeah.
Like if you are fixated on one thing and that one thing doesn't happen, like you are completely crushed.
Yeah.
But if you have like other options or other passions, then you're okay. You know,
Yeah.
you can get up and move on and just be like, okay, well, that door didn't work, and there are other opportunities and other choices that I can pursue.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's like thinking highly enough of yourself too to be like, I can be flexible and I can find other things. And it's not like I have one set of talents and one set of abilities and nothing outside of that. Like giving yourself permission to grow and evolve and tap into different strengths that you have, I think is important with that too.
Well, how much of it do you think it is that we're just very different from our parents? Because I don't know about you, but growing up, it was like, pick a career, stay in the career, be there for 40 years, live with it.
Yeah. So my parents growing up, my dad has been a financial advisor his whole life. He's, you know, shifted companies, but he's done the same thing for, probably 30 years now. And my mom, in the other regard, went down the accounting path, got her CPA, and was really succeeding, and then had us and decided, like, actually, I've put all of this time and effort into this role, but this is actually what I would rather spend my time doing. And I'm so thankful that she did. Like, having her home with us was amazing, and I know not everybody gets that opportunity. But I think it was interesting for me growing up because I saw both sides of the coin, where like my dad had done something his whole life and stuck with it. And I saw, you know, because there are benefits to that, right? Where like you stick with something and you get better and better and better. And like now he's in his 50s and I'm seeing the rewards of that. But also with my mom, like she did do the pivot and it worked in her favor, it worked in our favor. Like it was absolutely the right choice. But I think back, like, had she been like, no, I went to school for this, I got this license, I've climbed this ladder, like I have to stick with it, my whole life would have been different, you know?
So you had like two examples of
Yeah.
two different things and they
Yeah.
both worked out.
Yeah.
And that works really well in your favor.
Yeah. But that being said, like my dad has always been very vocal about like, he went into the role that he's in, you know, to provide for us, to give us access to things, to give us opportunities, which I'm grateful for. But he is the first person to say that that job has caused him a lot of stress and it's caused him a lot of, like, I don't know, unrest, and it's been challenging. And, you know, I think if he could go back, I don't know if that's what he would go into. But because it was best for our family, he's stuck with it and he's kind of powered through. But I think because of that, he's always told me and my brother, like, take the time that you need to figure out, like, what you want to do. And that's not an excuse to, like, sit back and not do anything. Like, try things, but it's okay to, like, try something and change your mind about it. And I don't know that he would have that perspective had he not done this path that he's on of, like, picking a career and staying with it, even if he's not necessarily, like, the most happy about it. So.
Well, that's great. I mean, that probably is like a big burden off your shoulders versus, you know, somebody being super strict with you and saying like, no, you should keep teaching, do it, keep doing it. You studied for this. Isn't this what you wanted?
Yeah.
That's probably really bad. It's like, it's very unhealthy, you know?
Yeah. And my parents actually were pushing for me to get out of education before I was even ready to acknowledge that. So I'm grateful for that because I know not everybody has that experience and that opportunity. And like that in and of itself is definitely a privilege that I have. But I do think, yeah, seeing how our parents grew up, it's like you see the pros of it and you see the cons of it. And I think it's natural to internalize that and be like, okay, how can I build on that? And how can I do better with my life?
Right. Okay. So let's talk about, because I feel like people our age, they compare themselves a lot.
Yeah.
So how do you avoid that? Like for me personally, I think about it as, you know, everybody gets like a certain gift. And I feel like, you know, mine is, I think I'm hilarious. If you don't think I'm funny, screw you.
What
but
are you even doing listening to this
exactly. And, you know, I'm outgoing and I want to try new things. And I think that embracing that more has made me happier. And I always think to myself, I'm like, they can't do it like me. Like, they can do it, but they can't do it like me. So how do you avoid that?
Yeah, I think that's something that I've struggled with like my whole life, because I tend towards being a super competitive person, which can benefit for sure. And again, like I work in sales now, it's like amazing to be competitive in sales. But I think that also naturally lends itself to comparison, and especially as women too, right? Like we're literally conditioned from birth to be comparing ourselves to the other women that are around us, to like whether it's body image or it's personality or, you know, like I think it's something that it's a battle that's ongoing, and I wouldn't say that I've like figured out the answer to it either. Like I think that that's still something ongoing that I face. But it's kind of like what you said, like there is nobody else in the world that's created like me, that has like my makeup and my DNA
and your experience.
And experience. Yeah, exactly. So it's like kind of just staying in your own lane, you know, and like rather than how can I be better than the person next to me, how can I just be the best version of myself, and like shifting that focus from, okay, I need to do better than this girl on my left or my right. I need to do better than me last year or me last month. Because I can't turn off that like competitive part of my brain, but I can shift the focus on like who I'm competing with. And
right. Or maybe you can like compete in healthy ways. It's like, oh, I'm going to invite this person out for pickleball and destroy them.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ooh, I like that.
Or like, I'm going to beat you in this cycle bar race.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
Wait, talking about special gifts. You're a pastor. I don't care what you say. You're a pastor. Okay, talk about how, we would both go to cycle bar. We both went to cycle bar Fort Myers, and she became an instructor. Yes, we did do our first class together. Oh my God, I forgot about that.
I almost did not make it out of that room. I was
was a lot.
This is the end. I see the light at the end of the tunnel.
And I told myself, I was like, I will probably never do that again. Mm-hmm. And then like 100 rides later, I think I complete like 120 rides. Mm-hmm. But she was a great instructor because she would like pause and, not even pause, we'd be riding. And she would give like a sermon, like an advice sermon, free therapy. And I was like, oh my God, she's so good at that. Like, do you believe that that is something that like is a sort of calling for you?
Thank you. Actually, yeah. I mean, I think that that's something that I have gone back and forth with in my life, of like, I feel like I'm a very emotional person. Which is funny because like being vulnerable is something that I really, really struggle with. I mean, who doesn't?
Yeah.
But it's something that like my inner makeup like fights against, like showing that softer side of me. But at the same time, like I always have been really in touch with my emotions, and I also feel like empathy is an area that I really excel in. And so like it was a lot easier when I was a kid and you're like being friends with somebody on the playground or whatever to be like kind and empathetic. And then you get older and like you experience things and you experience hurts, and it's like, well, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna open myself up to people in that way.
You become like hardened.
Yeah. And actually cycle bar was like a really good outlet for that for me, because I think prior to that it was hard for me to figure out, okay, what does that look like as an adult? Like how can I connect with people in that way? And doing something that, I mean, that was a scary journey, like stepping out and being like, I'm going to be a fitness instructor. Like me?
Yeah, right.
That was crazy to me. But doing that, I think, opened that up. And it's been really cool to watch how, like, opening up parts of myself connects with other people and, like, gives them permission almost to, like, be like, yeah, I actually struggle with that too, because I think we all want somebody else to go first. Like you want somebody else to share that they're struggling before you share that you are.
Right.
And so that's kind of how I've looked at that platform, is like, okay, this is something that I know I'm good at. How can I use it to positively impact the people around me? And it's been great. Like I've had people come up to me at the end of classes like in tears, and you think like it's 45 minutes riding bikes, it's not that serious, but like people have a lot of stuff that they're bringing with them and like carrying on their shoulders, and just because it's a workout class, like you can still make the most of it and like give people permission to like take that weight off and breathe, you know? So.
Yes, I don't know how this turned into a Cycle Bar 4 Myers ad, but also for me too. I mean, like going into that setting and sharing that space with so many people and it's just like a shared experience, and it's also taking the time out for yourself every day. It does lead to like, okay, well, I really enjoyed that, and how else can I don't know, express myself in a certain way, or how else can I make time for myself? I also found myself like, and celebrating yourself more. Bitch, when they come out with the golden numbers on like ride 1 and then ride 25 and then 50 and then 100, I'm like, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, it's like building. It really builds you up. Okay, that's hilarious. That's hilarious that we have that same like experience.
Yeah.
Okay, what about, you know, gratitude and how that like can serve us? Because I feel like I'm a much more grateful person than I was like around the time we met. I was so over it. I was like, I'm so done with this job. Like, it's not giving me anything.
Yeah.
But I do think that is like the ultimate way. It's like focusing on what you do have versus what you don't have. And as long as like your eyes are on that, you feel a lot happier.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I am a therapy bitch for sure.
Okay.
I have been in like weekly, then bi-weekly. Now I'm like graduated to once a month, not to flex. But I've been in like pretty intensive therapy for 3 years now. Funny how that coincides with when I started teaching. But
girl, me too. Wait. It also sent me to therapy in my last year at yes. And then the minute I left the job, I was like, oh, I don't need this anymore, because the job was giving me all of these problems.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in therapy like on and off my whole life. I got diagnosed with anxiety when I was like 16 and was having like panic attacks and stuff like that. So it's been an ongoing process for me, but something that I've really focused on in the last like year to year and a half has been that anxiety piece. And I think it relates to the gratitude thing, because it's like, I'm not saying I have anxiety because I'm ungrateful about my life. Like, I think it's a lot deeper than that. But something that my therapist has me focus on a lot is like, okay, going into a situation where you feel anxious, shifting your focus from like everything that's out of your control to the things that are in your control. So like, even if it's only 2 or 3 things, if I can shift my focus from this like overwhelming cloud of things that are like out of my control to the few things that are, I can start to bring my heart rate down, and I can like start to regulate my emotions and things like that. And similarly, I think it works like that with gratitude too. Like, it's really easy, especially like, not to sound like I'm 100 years old, but in this day and age, to think about all of the things that are going wrong and all of the things that feel like sad or upsetting or disappointing. But instead, like, shifting your focus to, okay, what are the few things in my life that I can cling to that I'm really grateful for? And it can be small, but I think your mindset and your perspective is so, so important. And
I think it's the most important thing.
It is. And
like,
gratitude
it is.
drives so much of that, I think, you know?
Yes. It's like health and happiness are the number one thing, especially like how you get happy. Do you know what I mean? Like, you have to work on it every day. You have to do things that make you happy. You have to go out of your way to do them.
Yeah.
Because that full-time job not gonna make you happy.
No.
It's not gonna make you happy. And I felt like I had a college professor who was like, we spent all this time working. And she pulled up like an infographic of how much time we spend working. She's like, your job has to make you happy. And I'm like, but it's work.
Yeah.
But it's work.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. It's interesting, even like from a work perspective and gratitude, like obviously having shifted careers in the last year, like, I don't know that there's ever going to be a job that I wake up every day and I'm like, I'm so excited to go to work. I love my job. I love working. But like, back to that gratitude piece, I'm like, you know what? A student didn't threaten to beat me up today. So like, yeah,
so
I don't want to have a meeting at 4 p.m. I would love to be like signing off and done for my day. But you know what? Comparatively, I'm grateful. And it sounds silly, but like, it's those little pieces of gratitude that add up over time. Like, I don't want to clean my kitchen. But you know what? I had to live with my parents for 6 months during COVID when I was in between jobs. And I love my parents, but once
it wasn't
you
that
move
much
out,
fun.
I don't think you should ever move back in. And you know what? I don't want to clean my kitchen, but I'm grateful to have my own space. And like, it's little shifts and little reframes that I think make all the difference.
For sure. Okay, so moving forward, so what is gonna keep motivating us like moving forward?
Yeah, I think like for me, that shift from, so when I went into teaching, I'm like, I'm gonna make such a difference. Like, this is something that really matters to me. I'm passionate about it, and all of that was true. And then I left teaching and I went into sales, and I'm in like tech sales now. I'm like, I actually don't really care about this. You know, it's not like objectively, it's not going to cure poverty. It's not going to cure hunger. Like, it is what it is. And so I actually had a really hard time like staying motivated and thinking of things to look forward to, because I was putting so much of that into my career and my job when I was a teacher that it was like a piece of my identity got pulled away. So I've had to kind of like reshift and almost like backtrack to, okay, if it's not my job that I'm passionate about, what are the things that matter to me? Like, what are the causes that I care about, the things that I'm passionate about, and also like hobbies that I enjoy, you know?
Right.
So it's been like a backtrack thing for me, and I think I'm still figuring that out. I literally was talking to Blake, my boyfriend, about this like 2 days ago. I'm like, I really want to find somewhere to like volunteer, which sounds like so silly, but I'm like, even if it's once a month that I'm doing something outside of myself, because I think sales is very like self-focused, and it's very like, how much money am I making, which is fine. Like, I love making money, but I think the things that keep us motivated and the things that keep us growing and like progressing are things that are focused outside of us as well. So I'm trying to get back to that.
Okay. I mean, conversely, I have no problem being self-motivated. And I'm trying to, use like work toward things that I didn't know that I wanted, or I had forgotten that I wanted. Like the stand-up comedy. I did a stand-up comedy. It was like 5 minutes long. That's not the point. The point is not the length. It doesn't matter how long it is. Okay. But that was like very fulfilling for me because I got to, go under the stage lights, and I really enjoyed it. And so did the audience. So that was something that I had forgotten that I had wanted to do. And then like just one day I was like, okay, well, let me go and try it. And it was a great experience. Or starting like something like this podcast that I feel like I can put out there, and hopefully it can help someone, and I can talk about things that I want to discuss, and I don't have constraints on me. And it's a new thing. I think trying out new things is like, it's food for the soul, because when you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, it's horrible. It really is horrible. And I don't want to live like that monotonous life. I want to do things that terrify me. Okay. One of my favorite quotes, that if I wanted to get like letters tattooed on me, which I don't, but it's feel the fear and do it anyway. I love that. I love that. I'm like, yes, like actually do it because it scares you. Do it because it scares you. I'm a big believer in that. So
no, I agree with that. I think like, even if it's one thing every year, so if it's like stand-up comedy or whatever it is, like last year, you remember I went to Ireland completely by myself. Yes. And that was kind of that for me. Like, I was getting into a committed relationship, things were very comfy, and I was like, you know what, I just need to know that this is something that I can do for myself. And so I like planned an entire trip. I planned it on the heels of a breakup, actually.
Oh, nice.
Not with my current boyfriend, but the one before him. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be alone forever. And I was like, but why is that a bad thing? Like, again, the reframing.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, so if that's what it's going to be, then like, how am I going to make the most out of that? And I was, of course, terrified as a 20-something-year-old woman to go overseas by myself and be like traveling by myself. But I did it, and I feel like that was such a transformative experience. And it's like, you have no idea how things are going to impact you until you do them. So like you said, like, do it scared. I feel like it's like a life motto. No,
for sure. So what do you think about, because I've named this episode Life is a Laboratory, because that's how I live. And sometimes people don't get it. Like, for example, where we both used to work, or I mean, I'm not gone yet, but I will be gone like very soon. The AC's still out. The AC's still out since the hurricane.
No.
Yes. And somebody sent an email and they were like, the AC's not working because there have been storms in the last couple of months. And I was like, all last year I was being nice about it. I'm like, oh, okay, they'll fix it when they fix it. Like, it doesn't work. Ma'am, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And this time I was just like, no. And I logged into the email and I put, hello, good morning. I would like to let you know that it hasn't been working since the hurricane. So whatever, suppositions or assumptions that you're making that it was a storm yesterday is completely fake and phony and false.
Yeah.
And people thought I was crazy. They were like, oh my God, how could you talk to him like that? And I was like, okay, well, I already tried the nice way. So now I have to experiment a little bit and poke around and see what happens. And to me, I thought that was fun. Maybe I'm psychotic. I don't know. I thought that was funny. I thought it was fun. And, of course, he was like, this will live on forever in the public email. And I was like, great, because it just shows that you have not fixed the AC for over a year.
Right. It's busted.
Yes. Okay, but are there limits to this, treating life as an experiment? Because I feel like sometimes it's you could take it too far.
Yeah. It's a good question. I feel like if it's only directly affecting you and it's your life, do whatever, right? You determine your own limits. I feel like for me, at least, where I start to put more thought into it or maybe hold myself to certain boundaries is when I know it's going to also affect other people. Not saying you have to be a people pleaser or make your whole life based on what other people think, but I think it's being kind and being considerate and understanding if I do this, could it negatively impact person X, Y, and Z? And you know what? Maybe that's my anxiety speaking. But
no, I should probably take that to heart. I don't know.
I think there's a balance though, right? You have to do what's right for you, but I don't think it's ever a bad thing to at least consider, not necessarily make the decision based on, but at least consider how is this gonna negatively impact other people? Because I feel like we've all been on the receiving end of that, where somebody makes a decision and didn't think about how it was going to impact us.
Oh, for sure.
AKA the education system. But seriously, we've been on the receiving end of that. And so for me, my filter is just if I can help somebody else avoid that, then I think it's at least worth a singular thought.
Okay. All right. Let's end this with a lightning round of questions.
Ooh, okay.
Yes. For, you know what? How about I do a question? I'll give you two options and then you can do one for me.
Okay.
Because, viewers don't know me either at this point. So
yeah.
It'll be great. Okay, Jojo. Burgers or tacos?
A burger.
A burger?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. With good toppings. As long as it's
Wait,
not
what
dry.
are bad toppings?
I am not a double up my meat kind of person. I don't want bacon on my burger.
All
especially
right.
if it's a little bit slimy. Not that bacon should ever be slimy, but no. I also love a classic burger. Give me some cheddar cheese, lettuce, tomato.
Me too.
Pickle.
Me too. And I want that last bite to be lettuce, tomato, mayo. You know what I
I'm
mean?
a mustard and ketchup person. I'll do a little bit of mayo.
I'm not a ketchup person. I don't eat ketchup on anything. Not fries.
Interesting.
Yeah, not a burger, not a hot dog.
Okay, well, it's better than this. One of my friends eats only mayo on a hot dog. We'll get a hot dog and layer that boy up with mayo, and that's it.
That's weird.
No, it is really weird.
Although I've seen that before. I have seen that before.
Just because you've seen it doesn't make it okay.
I know. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should.
Exactly.
Yes.
Okay, for you, if you had a week-long vacation, not in a city, would you rather it be on the beach or in the mountains?
Week long?
Yeah. I know, because that changes it.
I know. Mountains, because I don't want to get sunburned.
Oh,
which I thought up to age 20 that I was I can't get sunburned. I can get sunburned and it hurts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, are you a hiking person? If you were in the mountains, would you go hiking?
Absolutely, but I have to have the right gear. I've learned this. Because recently I went on a vacation with some friends and my shoes on the bottom, my hiking shoes were completely smooth. Completely smooth. There was ice on the trail.
Yeah.
So I was slipping, sliding, I was playing Mario Kart, I'm like, who left all these bananas?
Right.
Who left all these bananas? It was crazy, actually.
Yeah.
I did almost like fall off the mountain. Yeah, I did have like a
God.
Tom and Jerry moment where I had to dig my claws into the ice.
Scraping down.
Yes.
Oh my
So
God.
it was kind of scary. It was
Okay.
a little bit scary, but I think we went on like a 17-mile walk. One of our friends got overzealous and decided
that's
to.
intense.
Yes, he's like, I want to see the top. I want to see the top.
Okay.
And
okay.
I'm like, at what expense? Because I'm going to go rolling
What
down the
cost?
side. I'm going to go rolling
Yeah.
down the side. Crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that question. Okay, snow. Like you gotta spend some time in the snow. Or, snowstorm or hurricane.
Okay, well, I have lived through many hurricanes, being a Florida native. I don't want to say I've gone through like one snowstorm, but it was in North Carolina, so like I don't know how serious we consider that. It was like -10, probably like a foot of snow.
I mean, were you like trapped in somewhere?
We lost power.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, that's serious.
Yeah. It was serious. I probably would have said a hurricane prior to Ian a couple of years ago.
Ian was tough.
Horrible. I had no running water for 2 weeks. I didn't have power for like 15 days.
Oh my God.
And I will never in my life live through that again. Like I've already told Blake, if there's a hurricane, we're leaving. We're not staying here. I'm not coming back until power is on. I'm sorry if that makes me selfish, but
No, I mean, the minute the power came back on, not even at home, like
yeah.
the airport. The minute the airport opened, I left. I left to Atlantic City.
Yes. I will never do that again. So for that reason, I'm going to say snowstorm.
Okay.
I can build a little fire. I'm delusional enough to think that it could be like cute and cozy. I like get a bunch of layers on and like get a good book. But I can't do that when I'm sweating and like I can't shower. I don't want to be like stinky and hot.
Yes.
I'm
Okay.
done
You're
with
not
that.
wrong.
Yeah.
You're not wrong.
Yeah.
I know some people were like, it was peaceful.
It was not peaceful.
It was not peaceful. All you heard was generators. All you smelled was gas.
I know.
My neighbor, God bless her, kept trying to turn on her car to the, yes, it didn't work. I heard it all day for like 2 days to the point where I was reversing like out of my driveway. And then I forgot the windows were down. I was like, yo, shit's fucked up.
I know.
Like, I think she heard me.
Yeah. I'm like not trying to make light of Ian. Like I know people had way worse
Yes,
stuff happen than
horrible.
losing their power. But personally for me, I will never go through that again.
It was not fun. If I can prevent it, I will not go through it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I have a question for you.
Go for it.
Obviously, hopefully, we're like out of our twin bed era.
We are
But
definitely out of that.
if you had to sleep on a bunk bed, are you going top or bottom bunk?
Top.
Interesting.
Top.
Why?
That's where I live, honey. I live in the top. I live to be a top. No, but like if you're on top, you don't have to put up with any squeaking.
True.
Yes. Or you are the squeaker.
Yeah.
So you can't get mad. Like
That's
you're
true.
the one rolling around being annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That question is actually relevant to me because when I went to Ireland, I stayed in hostels, which are all bunk beds.
You know what? When I go to New York City, I stay in a hostel and people think I'm psychotic. But there's a really nice one in Queens. It's called The Lodge. And by nice, maybe really nice is not the word. It's really nice on a budget.
Yeah.
But it's
Like
actually
hostel
fun because you
nice.
have like 3 roommates and then you all have like this little treasure chest that like you unlatch and then you put your stuff in and it's like it's copacetic. It's fun. And there's like a lounge downstairs and everyone's like
No, I know. Some of the lounges are actually like really nice in hostels.
it's cute and it's open. Like you walk in and there's like a garage lifted. Wow, I'm not making this sound good. I'm making this sound like Tires Plus.
Yeah.
But it's cute. It's like
advanced auto parts.
yes. Okay. So, but you open like a garage and then there's like a bar and it's like, it's very informal. It's like you go and you go out, you go and you go out. You don't have to talk to like a lot of people. I mean, obviously you need to talk to someone to get like your keys and stuff, but
I loved them in Ireland. And like as an extrovert traveling by yourself, it's so great because you are never by yourself. You're like always meeting new people.
yes.
But I hated being on a top bunk because I stayed in one in Galway and there was an extremely loud German woman, probably in her 60s, which go off, queen, like do your
Yeah,
solo
yeah.
traveling. That's amazing.
Go for it.
Unfortunately, she did need a nose strip or something to keep her from snoring because she was sleeping on her back and her snores were like floating up to me through my AirPods all night long.
Oh no.
And
Y'all needed to paper mache make her one and like slap it on her.
It was a lot. So because of that, I think I'm a bottom bunk person now.
Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
in the hostel, the only issue I had was somebody was like eating flaming hot Cheetos at 3 a.m. And when I tell you he was munching,
American
it was
problem.
like, and I'm like, whoa. Like, you're right. It is a very American problem.
Yeah.
I was not expecting a hot Cheeto girl to be in my room. Like,
No.
it was a man, but it doesn't matter. Like,
So
please.
it's the energy.
Save. Yeah, it is.
Anybody
It is
can
the
be a hot
energy.
Cheeto girl.
But other than that, I mean, he was a nice guy. He was a nice guy.
Okay.
All right. Well, this is so much fun. Thank you for
Thank
being
you.
a part of my first episode.
Thanks for
And yeah, hopefully we can do it again.
Yep.
You know, I think we're a great duo.
Same.
This was effortless. It was effortless.
I know.
All right. Thank you.